Hello, everyone. It's Miss Ann here for your next virtual children's church. And I am actually recording this video from my own home. And so I know that a lot of you are at home or somewhere where you're sheltering in place. And so I am at my home like you all are at your homes. And so I just wanted to let you know that I've been thinking about you all. I've been missing you all, but I've been really enjoying getting to see your faces on our Zoom game nights. So for parents who don't know what that is, or for kids who don't know what that is, check out the email that this video is attached to, because there are fun ways for us to connect based on age groups. We are hanging out virtually, and so this week we did a virtual scavenger hunt around your own homes, and that was a ton of fun. I really enjoyed spending that time with you all. Next week is going to be a new game, so tune in next week if you're able to, and we will do that. So as we get started for Children's Church, I just wanted to mention that we are in the last few days of the season of Lent. So Lent is the 40 days that we prepare our hearts for Easter Sunday, when we celebrate Jesus being resurrected. And so this Sunday is Palm Sunday. If you all watched Sunday school this last week, you saw me showing you with Godly Play the story of Jesus coming into Jerusalem on the donkey and why we wave the palm branches. So if you haven't seen that, I encourage you to check that video out. And so this week we are going to read the story called The Tale of the Three Trees. A lot of you have probably heard of this story before. Our children's musical last year actually was about this story, which is really interesting. So this is one of my favorite books, and I think that this is a really good book to kind of help us prepare our minds and our hearts for what's going to happen on Easter. Even though we know the story pretty well, it's still always nice to just have our hearts be in the right place, especially right now. So here is our story, The Tale of the Three Trees. Once upon a mountaintop, three little trees stood and dreamed of what they wanted to become when they grew up. The first tree looked up at the stars, twinkling like diamonds above him. "I want to hold treasure," he said. "I want to be covered with gold and filled with precious stones. I will be the most beautiful treasure chest in the world." So there's the treasure chest he's dreaming about. The second little tree looked out at the small stream trickling by on its way to the ocean. "I want to be a strong sailing ship," he said. "I want to travel mighty waters and carry powerful kings. I will be the strongest ship in the world." The third little tree looked down into the valley below, where busy men and busy women worked in a busy town. "I don't want to leave this mountaintop at all," she said. "I want to grow so tall that when people stop to look at me, they will raise their eyes to heaven and think of God. I will be the tallest tree in the world." So there's the ship the second tree looked at. Years passed. The rains came, the sun shone, and the little trees grew tall. One day, three woodcutters climbed the mountain. The first woodcutter looked at the first tree and said, "This tree is beautiful. It is perfect for me." With a swoop of his shining axe, the first tree fell. "Now I shall be made into a beautiful chest," thought the first tree. "I shall hold wonderful treasure." The second woodcutter looked at the second tree and said, "This tree is strong. It is perfect for me. With a swoop of his shining axe, the second tree fell. Now I shall sail mighty waters, thought the second tree. I shall be a strong ship, fit for kings. The third tree felt her heart sink when the last woodcutter looked her way. She stood straight and tall and pointed bravely to heaven. But the woodcutter never looked up. Any kind of tree will do for me, he muttered, with a swoop of his shining axe. The third tree fell. The first tree rejoiced when the woodcutter brought him to a carpenter's shop, but the busy carpenter was not thinking about treasure chests. Instead, his work-worn hands fashioned the tree into a feed box for animals. The once beautiful tree was not covered with gold or filled with treasure. He was coated with sawdust and filled with hay for hungry farm animals. The second tree smiled when the woodcutter took him to a shipyard, but not mighty sailing ships were being made that day. Instead, the once strong tree was hammered and sawed into a simple fishing boat, too small and too weak to sail an ocean or even a river. He was taken to a little lake. Every day he brought in loads of dead, smelly fish. The third tree was confused when the woodcutter cut her into strong beams and left her in a lumber yard. What happened, the once tall tree wondered. All I ever wanted to do was stay on the mountaintop and point to God. Many, many days and nights passed. The three trees nearly forgot their dreams. But one night, golden starlight poured over the first tree as a young woman placed her newborn baby in the feed box. I wish I could make a cradle for him, her husband whispered. The mother squeezed his hand and smiled as the starlight shone on the smooth and sturdy wood. This manger is beautiful, she said. And suddenly the first tree knew he was holding the greatest treasure in the world. One evening, a tired traveler and his friends crowded into the old fishing boat. The traveler fell asleep as the second tree quietly sailed out into the lake. Soon a thundering and thrashing storm arose. The little tree shuddered. He knew he did not have the strength to carry so many passengers safely through the wind and rain. The tired man awakened. He stood up, stretched out his hand, and said, "Peace." The storm stopped as quickly as it had begun. And suddenly the second tree knew he was carrying the King of heaven and earth. One Friday morning, the third tree was startled when her beams were yanked from the forgotten woodpile. She flinched as she was carried through an angry, jeering crowd. She shuddered when soldiers nailed a man's hands to her. She felt ugly and harsh and cruel. But on Sunday morning, when the sun rose and the earth trembled with joy beneath her, the third tree knew that God's love had changed everything. It had made the first tree beautiful. God's love had made the second tree strong. And every time people thought of the third tree, they would think of God. So there they are, all on top of the hill. That was better than being the tallest tree in the world. The end. That story was around since I was a kid, and I love that story. So I'm interested to know if you all would like to discuss with your families what's something that you learned from that book, from that story. What is something that you enjoyed about that story? I look forward to seeing you all again online, and I hope you all have a great day. Bye.